We are back after a way too long hiatus for these books. Um, wow, fun to get back into it. Today I am just talking about the first four chapters because there was something that happened after the fourth chapter that I felt like I had too much information to talk about. So this is what we're doing. And I know some of you on this channel are just mainly Lord of the Rings fans, but I just want this to be like a book channel. It's like a big book club. So what I am doing is I am reading Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. I don't know like all the terminology, all the series titles for some of this kind of stuff. But this is the Mistborn series. This is the second book in this series. So if you have read this already, you can enjoy my thoughts on this book as I read through it for the first time. And you can kind of get that experience, vicariously live through me who's reading it for the first time. But I would also kind of tell you and encourage you that if you haven't read this, you should read the first book in the series. The first book in the series is just called Mistborn. Here we go. I had to get my Harry Potter book too. And do we have these? These are beautiful books. But it was just on top of this one, Mistborn. Okay, so this is the first book in the series. I've already read this. I already did a few videos about this. If you want my thoughts on that, my videos are on the channel. But if you haven't read this book, we can start like a little book club. So I would just say you should read this book, and then you should catch up to me, who's going to do about one video a week on this. I'm going to try to cover, there's like, here, let's look at this together. I think there's 6 parts in this. Each is about 100 pages. I was considering breaking it up into 2 parts for each part. So for part 1, I kind of split it up into 2. I kind of finished 30 pages. It ends at 93, so, not quite. But I'm thinking about splitting it up into 2, but I'm not positive yet. But I am reading this. This is the second book in the series. Really interesting stuff. Brandon Sanderson's world that he set up is really fascinating. Very different from Lord of the Rings, but kind of has some of the same vibes. Not as good of a writer as J.R.R. Tolkien, as I don't think there's many people living or dead who are as good of a writer as J.R.R. Tolkien. But highly entertaining stuff. So please pick up this copy and then read this, and then you can watch some of these videos and we could discuss these things, discuss this book. But I'm really happy to be back into this because it's been way too long. And there's a lot of stuff in this book that I kind of want to talk about for just what he's doing, what I think these chapters are really about. There's a lot of mystery behind some of the stuff that Brandon Sanderson writes. He's very good at that. So I just kind of want to talk about that. We're going to talk about the first 4 chapters in this video. And then that's pretty much it. So I feel like I have other things that I got to talk about, but I'll try to save those to see if I can remember. I was coming up with a list as I was reading these chapters, but I was planning to read the entire first part, but then I was just taking a bunch of notes and there was just so much stuff that I wanted to talk about that I just kind of figured I'd split it up. And for those who are big Brandon Sanderson fans, I know that you guys have been waiting months for another one of these because it's been probably 2 months since maybe more, 2-3 months since I finished Mistborn. And then Lord of the Rings kind of just kept me preoccupied. And that was just pumping out essays. But I just got back from a long trip for 2 weeks to California. And then I'm back and I was kind of just reading this morning. I'm also very tired because I just flew in. So if I look awful, my eyes are real baggy, just cut me some slack. Okay. The start of this book is not as good as the start of Mistborn, the first book. But the first, okay, so this is what I'll say. The first chapter, there's no prologue to this book, Well of Ascension. The first chapter, if you compare the first chapter and the prologue, the first chapter of Mistborn is significantly better. I'm not a big prologue person, but I love that prologue in Mistborn. It was so good. It's better than the first chapter of the Well of Ascension, but the first 5 chapters together of Well of Ascension so far is better and more entertaining than the first 5 chapters of Mistborn, even though the first 5 chapters of Mistborn are great. But this book kind of just like hits off, like, what's the phrase? You just go hit off running, why can't I think of that phrase? I think in every one of these videos, I like cannot remember a phrase or something. It's just like an ongoing thing. Maybe some weird magic in this book. But there's a lot of things going on in this, and the world that he builds is really fascinating. So this is something that I think is the first thing that I want to talk about is the confirmation of 10. I don't know in the other prior book if we got 8 of these. Maybe that was actually like a signal. I want to test that out. Hold on. Let's see. Wow, I should have known. In Mistborn. Come on, focus. Come on, camera. There's 10 of these. And these 10 things are the 10 elementic powers. Now, I kind of tend to think, okay, so that seems to confirm that there's 10 of them. I still think there's other things, weird things going on. I almost feel like there's 11 or 12 of them. And maybe these aren't really the elementic powers. I feel like they have to be. But I just wrote a little note that says 10 right here. I'm not positive, for sure positive what these are yet. But we got an image in the very beginning to the Wall of Ascension. I'm guessing this is a Steel Inquisitor. Come on, focus better. With the things through his eye and goes through the back of the skull. And maybe this is the sign of the Steel Inquisitor. But none of that sign does not exist in any of these other signs. So I don't know. And I don't know what these signs mean. I would love to like... The iconography of this so far is really fascinating. That's something that's really good in this book, the iconography of it. Like I don't know what these things mean, or I don't know what these things are yet, but I'm really fascinated by them. And then another thing I even forgot kind of in the chapters, there's even like this artwork. So in the first chapter, you have this. You can't see this. It's one of them. It's one of the elementic powers, symbols for them. I'm guessing that's what it is. That has to be what it is. I don't know what that one is yet. I don't know. It's just fascinating. I think it's like really, really interesting stuff. But I'm just kind of talking in a hole right here. Okay, so in the very beginning of this, in the first chapter of this, it kind of starts off guns a-blazing. So it's like a very simple chapter. Well, kind of. Not really. I actually forgot to write a summary of this one. But essentially, they're catching us up on like the story. So there's an army that's creeping toward them because they killed the Lord Ruler, or Vin killed the Lord Ruler. And spoiler alert. Well, you got to watch this. Or you got to read the videos. Or, gosh, read the book, watch the videos. Vin kills the Lord Ruler. And then all of a sudden, the whole dominance, all these dominances become shrouded in chaos. And it's like nuts. And these are the first things. There's like inscriptions. I don't know if this is the Hero of Ages who's still writing this, or if it's someone different. Maybe they found a different journal. But the beginning of chapter 1, it starts off by saying this. I write these words in steel, for anything not set in metal cannot be trusted. What is that? Why can anything not be set in metal not be trusted? That's a really confusing section for me. This book left me with, or the first few chapters just left me with a lot of questions. Another thing, so there's two other things that are really plaguing me from the other book. And the things are, what is the deepness and what are the ash mounts particularly doing? Because the first two sentences in this book go like this. The army crept like a dark stain across the horizon. King Ellenventure stood motionless upon the Luthadel city wall, looking out at the enemy troops. Around him, ash fell from the sky in fat, lazy flakes. Well, this is the first four paragraphs, or first four sentences, sorry. It wasn't the burnt white ash that one saw on dead coals. It was the harsher black ash. The ash mounts had been particularly active lately. So, number one, why have they been particularly active? It has to be something with the Lord Ruler. Like my theories are, it has to be something with the Lord Ruler, with him just keeping the ash mounts suppressed in some way. I don't know how he would do that. It has to be something with the deepness too. I still don't really know what the deepness is. I really have like almost no theories because it's just so abstract right now. I was potentially thinking it has something to do with the Pits of Hathsin. Maybe the Pits of Hathsin were like something that was keeping the ash mounts suppressed. Maybe that has to do with the deepness as well. And then Kelsier destroying those things, which I don't know if he really has destroyed those things. That's another one of my questions throughout this chapter. They don't have a ton of adium left. Like Vin has essentially ingested her last little bead of adium. And it makes me confused as where the rest of the adium is. If it's in the city somewhere, if it's hiding somewhere, if like there really was no adium, if that was like a big lie, if maybe the Ventures, because they were kind of controlling the adium transportation, I guess. But it's very confusing. Yeah, I don't know, because one of the first little things that you have. 50,000 soldiers, Ellen said, trailing off. Despite heavy recruitment, Ellen had barely 20,000 men under his command, and they were peasants with less than a year of training. Maintaining even that small number was straining his resources. If they'd been able to find the Lord Ruler's adium, perhaps things would be different. As it was, Ellen's rule was in serious danger of economic disaster. Excuse me, I think I'm getting a little sick. But yeah, they don't have adium. I don't know where the adium is. It's just there's a lot of questions that this jumps off and tries to throw in the text immediately. And yeah, there's the majority of this video is just going to be me talking about the questions that this raises and just maybe potentially coming up with a few theories. But some of the theories are just straight over my head because I don't know if I don't have the information yet. I probably do have some of the information. People say that he's very good at sneaking the answers into the text before you know, so that when you read it a second time, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I not see that? But I don't know. Ellen's father is a jerk. I wrote that. A little note here says jerk because Ellen's father is, Straff Venture. He's the one that's attacking the city. He says he's, gotten control of the northern dominance, which I think that's probably the case. He's gotten control of the northern dominance, but, he's running out and he's trying to attack, I guess, the central dominance. I don't know. I need to look at the map a bit better. He's attacking Luthadel right now. But these dominances are really interesting. There's a terrace dominance, farmost dominance, western dominance, northern, southern, eastern, southern islands, and remote dominance. And the crescent dominance. I feel like there has to be like a larger map. I like maps, but this one is a lot. I'm curious if there's like a larger, if the whole world will expand at all. If this is like only a small section of what we're going to see. I'm very excited to get into the Hero of Ages, which is the third book, and then past that into some of his other stuff with I'm blanking on the title, but the ones that he is like the 5-book series, the Way of Kings, I think it's called. Maybe that's one of the series, but they're so thick. I feel like that's going to take me months to read that. Hey Wes, my dog, he's just chilling looking at me. Come here. You just chilling? Good boy. Okay, so there's also a lot of other things that are really interesting. The mist is one of the biggest questions that I have in the first 4 chapters of this. These are some of the so let me just read 2 of these paragraphs in this chapter. It says, she approached a quiet street corner and stopped, peeking out. She never really understood how she burned metals. She could remember doing it for as long as she'd been alive, using allomancy instinctively even before she was formally trained by Kelsier. It didn't really matter to her. She wasn't like Alan. She didn't need a logical explanation for everything. For Vin, it was enough that when she swallowed bits of metal, she was able to draw upon their power. Something that Vin has that I think some of the other Allomancers and some of the other, especially Mistborns, have is like the ability to pierce through, to like know when someone's using allomantic powers. Vin seems to have that to a different degree, and that's something that I'm curious. What, are you getting playful? My dog is getting very playful right now. He's like jumping around the corner looking at me. So that's something I just want to know, if Vin has deeper power than these other people, or if she's just able to tap into it, and if she's going to be able to teach some of these people how to use these powers. I think it's the latter, but I also like the idea that she has like unique powers that other people don't. There's also this. She also liked the night. During the day, Luthadel was cramped and confined despite its size, but at night the mists fell like a deep cloud. They dampened, softened, and shaded. Massive keeps became shadowed mountains, and crowded tenements melted together like a chandelier's rejected wares. The mists continued to spin. Oh, well, hold on. This is the prior. She flipped a coin into the air, then mentally grabbed its line, and burning steel pushed on the coin. The bits of metal shot into the air, arcing through the mists, forced away by the push. It plinked to the ground in the middle of the streets. The mists continued to spin. They were thick and mysterious, even to Vin. More dense than simple fog and more constant than any normal weather pattern. They churned and flowed, making rivulets around her. Her tin-enhanced eyes could pierce them. The night seemed lighter to her, the mists less thick, yet they were still there. I don't know what the mists are. The mists, okay, there's another section that we're going to talk about later, but the mists seem to like hold. I have two theories on this. I think either the mists seem to hold the past in some way, and they seem to be able to like call upon people who are dead, and they can kind of retake form. Maybe like Mistborns can do that, or it's like a telephone system almost. Like you can use the mists to go spy on people, like Force Luke, when he like uses the Force to kind of transport himself to this other world and like fight Kylo Ren. That's kind of what I think the more logical explanation would be, because there's another character that we can introduce to here called the Watcher. And my two theories on who this Watcher is. It's her brother. That is my leading theory. Don't know if that one's true. I'm so curious if we're actually going to get him back into the story. Don't know if we are. Would love if that happened. But then my other one is just a boring one. It's just a totally new character that we haven't been introduced to yet. It's just like... I have all sorts of other theories about this. I was reading the first 4 chapters, coming up with all these other random theories. And one of my random theories is that I unfortunately think Ellen might die by the end of this book. And not that, like, you know, she's, like, this is going to sound terrible, but her new love interest is going to be the Watcher. Like, it seems like she's a great match with Elend. I love Elend. I think he's great. But it seems like he's kind of primed to die, which is really tragic and really sad. I think he's a great character. I love his, like, you know, theorizing, and he's, like, a smart politician, and he's doing the right thing here. But he also seems very susceptible. If only Vin is there protecting him, which I think Vin is probably, like, you know, the best. Actually, I don't know if she's the best. It seems like there's other people out there who maybe know more than she does. And I'm curious if she's going to meet, like, you know, someone she needs to train with, like a Master Yoda, or, like, you know, who's the Karate Kid teacher? Mr. Miyagi. I would love if she met someone like that and trained under this person, and then she became like this ultimate force, because she's like naturally good. Her instinct is incredible, and that's what one of the lines before or in the next chapter kind of has, like, talks about her instinct and how she kind of trusts her instinct rather than like logic, and that just kind of works for her. But chapter 2. Chapter 2 kind of pops off, and Vin essentially just fights this assassin crew. It's a really fascinating chapter. Brandon Sanderson knows how to write a well-paced action sequence. He doesn't drag them out for that long. This chapter maybe felt a slight bit dragged out, like almost like too much action, but I don't think... Actually, I kind of take that back. I think it was a really good pacing of this action, because there's like a ton of things happening. She gets surrounded by like these 8 Allomancers. One of them ends up being this Mistborn that she doesn't really recognize before, and she kind of gets lucky with certain things. She swallows a bead of adium. His adium runs out before hers. She's able to kill him. But the entire time that she's having this fight, the Watcher is kind of standing on a wall or on a building or on like a keep, just kind of watching her aka the Watcher, watching her fight and to some extent helping her and assisting her in fighting. That's why I almost think like this might be like a Mr. Miyagi kind of character. Someone who is like looking out for this Allomancer or this Mistborn who actually has the ability to like, you know, be, I don't know, not like vanquish evil. I don't know what it would be. I don't know, but the Watcher just seems like he's stronger than Vin. Like more experienced, like almost like a Kelsier figure, but a lot more mysterious, obviously, because we don't know who this person is yet. Just very curious who this is. Maybe it's the resurrected Kelsier just in mist. Yeah, I don't know who this Watcher is. That's what that was like my biggest note in this chapter. And in this chapter it says nobody sent assassins to kill bodyguards. Assassins killed important men like Ellen Venture, king of the Central Dominance, the man she loved. Got a little love connection going there. And it's interesting that this chapter is like a year after what happens in Mistborn, which was crazy to me. I thought it was going to be like right away. But I'll get there in a bit. Or sewer. Or sewer. Is that the right way to pronounce it? Or sewer, Vin wondered. But that was foolish. The Kandra was no Allomancer. And besides, he wouldn't have taken the initiative. Or sewer did only what he was expressly told. The assassin's coin shot looked equally confused. Vin glanced up, flaring tin, and was rewarded with the sight of a man standing atop a nearby building, a dark silhouette. He didn't even bother to hide. It's him, she thought, the Watcher. So there's two things. There's the first time we get introduced to the Watcher, and second of all, Or Sewer, this person that comes in, that doesn't come into the story. It's this Kandra that we knew before as Lord Verneau, is still interesting and bizarre to me. Talks about something called the contract, which I think it was maybe just like a contract that they signed with maybe it's like a literal contract. Maybe it's more like a religion. I think it's more like a literal contract that he signed with Kelsier. I don't know. Maybe like the whole thing is like they would provide him bodies. I like the whole idea of Or Sewer right now. It's just really fascinating and really interesting to me. I just don't fully understand it. It almost seems like it's a mist wraith kind of being, one that can kind of like take on the form and the shape of someone, but in a different way from a mist wraith. And a mist wraith, it's like an amalgamation of everything that it takes on. There's like, you know, these things that are sticking up that it like kind of consumes, like a big blob. For a Kandra, it seems like they can do that, but they can only do that with one being. Like, I don't know what they are yet. It's very similar to like a boggart in Harry Potter. Like, you don't know the actual shape of a boggart, but you only know what shape they take on when they are trying to scare someone. And that's what this seems like to me. Like, I don't know if we know the shape of what a Kandra actually is. We only know what their shape is when they take on the form of another person. Someone they've killed, because this Kandra in particular, or Sewer, is against killing. He doesn't want to kill anybody. So his contract is he doesn't kill, and they give him bodies that he can not feed on, like, you know, take the shape of, I guess. It's just really fascinating. It's really interesting. I don't get that yet. Yeah. But this is another good description we had. Vin was in grave danger. She only had a moment to make her decision. She did so on a hunch. But she'd grown up on the streets, a thief and a scam artist. Hunches felt more natural to her than logic ever would, which is a great description of Vin. I think that is a great written description of Vin. She's someone who kind of comes by this stuff naturally. She's very naturally in tune with this kind of stuff, which I love stories that are like that, where someone is just like naturally gifted at these things, and there's like a lot of raw potential behind them, and they still just need to be trained, which is why I think a lot of this book is going to be like a training montage. Like, I just keep thinking of the Star Wars analogy. Like, the second one is about him going to Dagobah. I feel like Vin is going to do something similar. Like, she's going to have to go train somewhere. Maybe with the Watcher. I kind of hope. I think the Watcher is going to be a really fascinating character. I'm really interested to see who the Watcher is, what shape they take in this story. what power that they have, if there's anything else outside of this that we're going to learn. I think there's going to be tons of stuff we're going to learn outside of this. But yeah, really fascinating stuff right now. So she keeps fighting. And I talked about the contract a little bit. And then there's one section that I thought was really interesting, like an ethical and philosophical discussion. It says, Vin frowned. She glanced back toward the dead men, and her stomach twisted slightly at the gruesome sight of the fallen bodies. She'd killed them. 8 men, with the cruel efficiency that Kelsier had trained in her. This is what I am, she thought. A killer like those men. That was how it had to be. Someone had to protect Elend. I didn't have it highlighted. Where is this section? I think it's here somewhere. Let me just scan this. I can't find it. Maybe it was before when she killed another person. Killing has become easy to Vin. Before it wasn't. Now it seems like it's become easy to Vin, which is like, I think, a little alarming. I'm not nervous or scared that Vin is going to, go to the dark side or something like that. But part of me is a little bit. I feel like this might be an indication in the text that she is potentially numbing herself to this. If killing is becoming easy, and not only easy, I think there was one section here that it said it was almost enjoyable for her. How killing, because no, I don't think it would actually take that back. I don't think it says that. I think it says that killing has become easy for her. This, again, I'm going to use these Star Wars analogies. It's like the path to the dark side. Killing becomes easy. Maybe the next step is killing becomes, like, in some weird way, like a pleasure for her. I really hope that's not the case, because I love Vin. I think she's incredible. But I'm nervous that she might potentially go to the dark side. Another one of my notes, the Watcher is Reen. I was very convinced on that the first this chapter. But I kind of think I still might be Reen. Maybe like 60% thinking Reen. 40% maybe maybe 35%. It's just like some person we haven't been introduced to who's like her new tutor. And then, I don't know, maybe, I don't think it's Kelsier. Kelsier just for sure seems dead to me, which is sad because I really like Kelsier. But yeah, that's what I got in that. Chapter 3. This is just a dialogue chapter. Vin and Ellen kind of catch up, and Ham kind of talks to them about who Vin just killed. It's like an interesting character, and it kind of broadens the entire story in a really interesting way. It's the 3rd chapter. So far, all we really know is Luthadel. Like, that's kind of all where the battle's taking place. There's been a few other spots we've gone to in the other fight. There's another city that we've kind of seen, which is kind of where Vin and what's Vin and character names, Lord Renault, were just kind of posting up in Felice, and they would just kind of go back and forth between those two things. But we're like the vision is narrow right now. This chapter does a good job of just like slowly expanding it up into one other area. The next chapter kind of expands it into a different one too, but it's a really good one. It is interesting that this happened a year later. So we got that line from Elend, who's like, pondering over his life, and says the Lord Ruler was dead. Even a year later, Vin sometimes found that concept difficult to grasp. The Lord Ruler had been everything. King and God, lawmaker and ultimate authority. He had been eternal and absolute, and now he was dead. Vin had killed him. Wild. Yeah, and another one of these things, this is kind of where I think, okay, this is why I think Elend's going to die. Some of these lines just pop out to me. Many were only spies and few were Allomancers, but a normal man's steel knife would kill Elend as easy as an Allomancer's glass one. I feel like he's going to die by a steel knife. She wouldn't let that occur. Vin is saying this. Whatever else happened, whatever sacrifices it required, Elend had to stay alive. This is going to be her conundrum, because I think Elend is going to die, and she's going to, not just have like guilt over this, but like, I think it's going to cripple her. That's probably my guess for where this whole story is really going. I think Elend will die. I think it'll cripple her. She might need to go out and, get trained by this person to be like a strong, a stronger Mistborn. because she is incredibly strong right now, but she still seems to know nothing. Like the whole world seems so much more expansive. I'm curious what these other Allomancers in these different parts of the dominances are going to be able to teach her. Because I feel like that has to be more about that. I'm so curious who her new like teacher is going to be. Because before we were learning from Kelsier, and like that was the thing. Maybe this one just is going to be kind of void of teachers. I don't know. Interesting stuff. And the end of these two paragraphs made me really want to reread the end of the Mistborn when she kills the Lord Ruler, because this is what it says. Why could Vin, a girl who barely had 2 years training as a Mistborn, do it? There was more. She still remembered vividly the morning when she'd fought the Lord Ruler. There was something about that event that she hadn't told anyone, partially because it made her fear just a bit that the rumor about the legends about her were true. Somehow she'd drawn upon the mists, using them to fuel her allomancy instead of metals. It was only that power, the power of the mists, that had been able to beat the Lord Ruler in the end. She liked to tell herself that she had simply been lucky in figuring out the Lord Ruler's tricks. But there had been something strange that night. Something she'd done. Something she shouldn't have been able to do and had never been able to repeat. That makes me want to go back and reread it, particularly with just what it's talking about with the mist. It's just, I keep saying this, but I just don't know what is going on. And then this is really where the crux of, I think, this whole chapter comes into play. And this is one of my biggest questions for this. And this is what this is what the rest of the book, I think, is going to lead into, really. It says this. So she's like reaching out. She's trying to pierce through clouds of copper, try to figure out if there's any Allomancers in the city. She can't figure it out. And all of a sudden she gets this like beating. It says it was the rhythm of iron, or the pulses seemed indistinct, like ripples in a thick mud. They were coming from somewhere very close, on the rooftop, right in front of her. Vin froze, crouching. The night breezes blowing a wall of mist across her. Where was he? Her senses argued with each other. Her brawn said there was something right in front of her, but her eyes refused to agree. She studied the dark mists, glanced upward to be certain, then stood. This is the first time my bronze has been wrong, she thought with a frown. Then she saw it. Not something in the mists, but something of the mists. The figure stood a few feet away, eased in a mist, for its shape was only faintly outlined by the mist. Vin gasped, stepping backward. The figure continued to stand where it was. She couldn't tell much about it. Its features were cloudy and vague, outlined by the chaotic churnings of wind-blown mist. If not for the form's persistence, she could have dismissed it, like the shape of an animal seen briefly in the clouds. But it stayed. Each new curl of the mist added definition to its thin body, and long head. Haphazard yet persistent. It suggested a human, but lacked the watcher's solidity. It looked wrong. The figure took a step forward. Vin reacted instantly, throwing a handful of coins and pushing them through the air. The bits of metal zipped forward in the mist, trailing streaks and passing right through the shadowy figure. It stood for a moment. Then it simply puffed away, dissipating into the mist's random curls. What is that? Either the Watcher is doing this in a way of like transporting himself across places to be able to like view what Vin is doing and see what she's doing, and maybe this is how Vin is going to be able to kind of get across the realm in different ways. No way. But again, it's interesting because it seems to talk about how this seems to be different from the Watcher. And it does talk about like the solidity of it. So maybe this is like the same body type, but like, it just isn't the Watcher. It's not a human. It's just the Watcher taking on the form of the mist. Maybe that's what that line is kind of causing us to think about. Oh man, my whole video died. Hold on one second. Sorry. But hold on. I think we're going to be back in a second. Maybe not. We'll see. There we go. Sorry about that. I don't know how long that was out for. Mists. Talking about mists. It seems to take on a different form from the Watcher, so I'm curious what the different, if it is just like a mist form of the Watcher, or if it's like, Kelsier, potentially Reen. I keep thinking Reen is going to come back in the story somehow. I don't know who else we are really introduced to. There's one character that I'm really curious about too. I very much think that this character has nothing to do with anything. It was just kind of there for the story of Mistborn. But there's one character, and it was maybe my favorite chapter of Mistborn, when I think it's just one section of Mistborn actually. It was a section when Kelsier destroys the Pits of Hathsin. And the chapter starts off with this one dude who's running through the Pits of Hathsin. He's one of the sinners of Hathsin. And he's running through looking for adium beads, because if he doesn't collect one, he's going to die. They're going to kill him. And he has to find one a week. And he finds one, comes up onto the surface, and then meets Kelsier. And Kelsier then, tells him to go. Does that guy have any importance in the story? Did he snap? Is he an Allomancer now? Does he have any Mistborn powers to him? I don't know why, but that character seems really interesting to me, and I would love to see if he comes back into the story. Don't know if he will, but I just think it'd be really fascinating to see if he did. So that's another one of my guesses for who this guy is, but I don't know what the mist is. What is happening with the mist? The mist seems like it can either. Right now, again, my theories are it's either calling up the past, or it's either giving you the ability to use FaceTime. Those are my two. Those are the only two options that I have really right now. Here we go. The assassin team who came to get Vin was not from Strathventure. It was from a different dominance. Elend nodded. Probably men I knew. Most Allomancers were noblemen, and he was familiar with all of those in Strath's retinue. I doubt it, Ham said. They were Westerners. Elend frowned, and Vin perked up. You're sure? Ham nodded. Makes it a bit unlikely that your father sent them. Unless he's done some heavy recruiting in Fadrax City. They were houses, Gardry and Conrad mostly. Elend said back. His father was based in Urtau, hereditary home of the Venture family. Fadrax was halfway across the empire from Urtray. Several months' worth of travel. Chances were slim that his father would have access to a group of Western Allomancers. Now, chances are slim, but he could potentially be learning this Mistborn FaceTime thing that we just saw. And maybe he's using that. Maybe his father is really like a Mistborn, and we really don't know. Doubt it. Potentially, though. Could be potential. Because the whole entire prior book, that one girl was a Mistborn. We kind of thought she was just an Allomancer. So I think it's, interesting stuff coming from this. And I love how this just slowly expands it into a few different territories. Now we have the Western territory coming into play. And the next chapter, which is I think one of the more interesting chapters, is a very short one. But it's essentially my favorite person of all time, the only terraceman, Sazed, as I say. I think it's Sazed, most people say, but I say Sazed. Finds a dead body, doesn't know how it happened, and kind of performs some ritual and rite over burying this person, and then tries to go teach these people in a different dominance, in the southern dominance, I believe, what is going on and what's happening. These inscriptions before the chapter are very interesting too. I mean, I try to make note of that, and I don't think they're going to really help me. And I think most people, when I was reading Mistborn, were like, don't bother with those. Those are for a second read. When you read them, you'll be like, oh, that's really cool that's in there. But this one is really interesting. Perhaps they are right. Perhaps I am mad, or jealous, or simply daft. My name is Quan, philosopher, scholar, traitor. I am the one who discovered Elendi, and I am the one who first proclaimed him to be the hero of ages. I am the one who started all this. That's fascinating. I want to know more about this person. I don't know if all these inscriptions, I think all these inscriptions will probably be for Quan. but I cannot wait to figure out who this person is. Maybe probably not meet this person, but like figure out who this person is, why their inscriptions are here, and why they want to write on metal and not anything else. And if all of these inscriptions are really part of what this guy is or girl is talking about, I think it's guy. Maybe not. Just an interesting section there. Another interesting one says, I was going to call out to him, but before I could, he just, like I told you, I seen him standing there. Then he froze. The mist swirled about him a bit. Then he began to jerk and twist, like something really strong was holding him and shaking him. He fell. Didn't get up after that. Still kneeling, Sazed looked back at the corpse. Tour, another new character that we meet, apparently had a reputation for tall tales. Yet the body was a chilling corroboration, not to mention Sazed's own experience several weeks before. Missed during the day. Sazed stood, turning toward the villagers. Please fetch for me a shovel. So, another theory that I had during this. Okay, so Sazed is there not knowing what's happening, not knowing how this man really died. And he's trying to figure it out. And he doesn't really know yet. And this is the only really real bit of the chapter that you get that he doesn't really, he's trying to figure out. The rest of the chapter, he's just kind of performing this burial ritual that seems to be like honoring the body, and he's trying to teach these people about religion and about more important things that they need to know. But this one section was interesting because perhaps the mist is acting on its own accord. And perhaps this was the person that Vin saw in the mist. And then when she, dismissed the mist or tried to leave the mist, it went and had to kill this person. Maybe this was the person that she was seeing. So maybe the mist is becoming its own character. Maybe the mist is the deepness. I don't know any of these. And so I just want to keep reading. I'm just really curious about this. Fascinating beginning to the story so far. And the last thing is just like a philosophically interesting line. The group of people shuffled quietly. Sazed sighed quietly. These people associated faith with the steel ministry and its obligators. Religion wasn't something that Scott worried about, save perhaps to avoid it when possible. The keepers spent 1,000 years gathering and memorizing the dying religions of the world, Sazed thought. Who would have thought that now, with the Lord Ruler gone, people wouldn't care enough to want what they lost? Interesting line. That people wouldn't care enough to want what they'd lost. It's like after a few generations, you just kind of forget what you lost, and it just kind of dissipates. So this is kind of the first little bit of reading that I want to do, or that I did, and that I wanted to kind of just talk about. I think it's really interesting in a good beginning to this whole book so far. Very curious to see where the story goes. I have theories, that I just talked about. I think maybe it can be a training kind of thing. I think Ellen's going to die. I don't know what these mists are. I think Reen has to come back into the story somehow. I still think that Reen is somewhere lurking in the shadows of this book somewhere. He's the one person that when I see, I'm going to be like, finally. Because in the whole prior book, I was just debating where Reen is going to be. So that's what I got. I'm really excited to keep reading this book. If you have read this book and you're, following along with me on this journey, just to vicariously live through me, thanks for watching. And I'll probably publish one of these a week as I'm going to kind of keep just slowly plodding through this book because I'm very excited. Because I think what I'm going to do with Sanderson is I think I'm getting overwhelmed with how much he publishes. So I am going to just slowly plod my way through the books. Because I don't think he's finished Way of Kings yet. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I got to research more into him. I don't really want to look up some of his stuff because I don't want any spoilers about anything that's happening. But after I do this, I'm going to read Way of Kings. But let me know too in the comments if you are a Brandon Sanderson reader, what order should I read things in? I think the whole I don't know the larger name for that series is. But let me know what my reading order should be. And for those of you who I said this at the beginning, but I would love for this to become like a book club for people to read along with me. And enjoy the story with me. I'm going to potentially write some more essays that I want to write, kind of about what I am doing with Lord of the Rings, but more so with Brandon Sanderson's kind of work. I'll definitely write less of them because I think Lord of the Rings is like a singular kind of work, and I think that it kind of deserves a bit more, where it's like easier to write about that kind of stuff. And I talk about a lot about his writing, and Brandon Sanderson's writing is different. And I'll write about this maybe in another essay, but Brandon Sanderson's writing is like there to be invisible, which I think is a really interesting style of writing. I think it's a really good style of writing, actually. And I think he's really good at it. So maybe I'll write some essays about Brandon Sanderson, kind of my read through it. But yeah, that's my thoughts for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.